What's up, peeps? It's Nick Johnson, your favorite sports YouTube journalist, back in here with one more video. And today's topic, reflecting on the legendary career of a certain NFL superstar who set boundaries for the modern NFL quarterback that we all know and admire as of now, who's given us 20 legendary Hall of Fame seasons, so many Pro Bowls, so many All Pros, so many accomplishments, so many records, and a Super Bowl win as a result. And mainly revitalizing a city that was facing lesser and lesser hope, and brought a great joy by bringing it its first ever Lombardi trophy. I'm talking about a man who exemplifies the role of an NFL quarterback that we had never seen before, rather revolutionized into a very high standard. And I'm talking about Drew Brees. Earlier today, Drew Brees has announced his retirement after 20 great seasons in the NFL, where he spent the first 5 seasons of his career with the San Diego Chargers, and then the next 15 as a member of the New Orleans Saints. Of course, Drew Brees was drafted in the first round back in 2001 by the San Diego Chargers, the then San Diego Chargers, in the first round of the 2001 NFL draft. After he was passed up by the Miami Dolphins because of his injury history. And he was a short quarterback. He was like close to 5'11", or around there. A real short quarterback, but has a hell of an arm. Now, his first couple seasons in San Diego were like a mixed result, but he still provided us with some great moments. And all of the sorts. But then they had a real bad falling out over his contract status, and of course, where they want to go long term. And of course, after Brees left, they passed the torch to Philip Rivers, who they traded for after the 2004 NFL draft, in which they actually selected Eli Manning number 1 overall, and he didn't want to play for them, so they made a trade with the Giants, the New York Giants, to swap Eli with their 4th overall selection, Philip Rivers, and the rest was history. Now, Brees left after the 2005 season on bad terms with San Diego, and then gave the reins to Philip Rivers, who proved to be one of the best quarterbacks ever, but unfortunately one of the guys that can never win the big one. And then, in 2006, is when the fortunes of a certain franchise who had been known for arriving in mediocrity would finally see their good fortunes turn around for the better and for the greater. In the 2006 offseason, right before the 2006 season, Drew Brees signed a free agent contract to be the starting quarterback for the New Orleans Saints, a franchise that had seen a lot of mediocrity, but just never could elevate to the levels of success that every other NFL franchise had seen throughout the years. A team that couldn't win anything, a team that hadn't won a playoff game, only had one playoff win back in, I believe, 2000. That was the last time they actually had some relevance. That was their first ever playoff win, a wild card win in the Superdome before Brees' arrival. They had Ricky Williams. That was just about it. But not only that, you bring in Brees, but you also bring in the offensive wizard, Sean Payton, to be their next head coach. Of course, we all remember Sean Payton at one point was the offensive coordinator for the New York Giants, especially coordinating the Giants squad to Super Bowl 35 back in 2000, which they got humiliated by the Baltimore Ravens in their Hall of Fame defense. And they came in with a certain goal, and that is to finally bring the Saints to relevance that they certainly need. This was 1 full year after the devastating effects of Hurricane Katrina that basically plagued all throughout the city of New Orleans, Louisiana. And a franchise had to play in another state and use a high school football field as their permanent home for the rest of the 2005 season, in which they finished that year at 3-13. Good enough to get the 2nd overall pick, in which they used it on superstar running back out of USC, Reggie Bush. Now, the arrival of those three, but mainly Peyton and Brees, the Saints' fortunes would turn around for the better. After an 0-2 start or a 2-0 start, which one it is, for New Orleans, they came back at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome in New Orleans in their home game against the Atlanta Falcons, their first home game in 2 years before the devastating effects of Hurricane Katrina. 1 year anniversary of Katrina, hosting Michael Vick and the Atlanta Falcons, and we all remember that one. The Saints won that game, but it was also forever remembered by that legendary block punt by special teams ace Steve Gleason, allowing Curtis Deloach to return the ball and take it to the end zone for the touchdown. And Brees would show off his magic with there. And with that, Brees put together an all-around fantastic Pro Bowl season and a good season from Reggie Bush and the elite offensive style of Sean Payton unleashing it to its untapped potential. The Saints saw unprecedented new heights that they've never seen before and is hailed as one of the greatest turnaround seasons in NFL history. With the leadership of both Sean Payton and Drew Brees and his new set of toys led by Marcus Colston, one of his favorite receivers before the ones that he had now up until his retirement, the Saints went on to finish that year 10-6 and won the NFC South Division as a result, earning themselves a number 2 seed and earning itself to its first ever trip to the NFC Championship game. They have never been there. And of course, they lost that game to the Chicago Bears, who were going to lose the Super Bowl to Peyton Manning in Indianapolis. But that season pretty much tells you how much in good hands the New Orleans Saints franchise will be with Drew Brees and Sean Payton at the helm. And from there, they just got better. Even though they had like a mixed bag the next 2 years, the 2009 season, as many of us remember, is the one that really solidified Brees and his legacy in New Orleans from that point on, both Brees and Sean Payton. The 2009 season will forever be the most legendary and favorable season for the city of New Orleans and the Saints franchise. Brees had another Pro Bowl season and an All-Pro year. He was out of his mind that year. Just basically getting better and better and better as his legacy was just rising from there at that point on. That's when San Diego was a mixed bag for him, but in New Orleans, that's where he became one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, in my view. And Sean Payton would, in my view, elevate himself to one of the greatest coaches ever. We have opinions on that, but who cares? That 2009 season, they had a undefeated streak going on. They started off the year 12-0 or 13-0. And especially one of those wins were against a New England Patriots team that had a young prime version of Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, and they blew out New England by more than 20 points. And it basically solidified them that the Saints team was no joke. I mean, you had a great Saints offense that had Reggie Bush, Pierre Thomas, and with Brees at the helm, and Marcus Colston and company. And then you had a good defense, which was in the bottom half of the pack totally, but they still made some great plays when it mattered. You had Jabari Greer. You had a very young Malcolm Jenkins, by the way, a very young Malcolm Jenkins, and was still young and super athletic. And you had former Patriot Randall Gay to solidify the secondary. And you had Tracy Porter, who will forever be in NFL lore, in which I will get into later on. I think this was like long before Cameron Jordan came about, I believe. Yeah, this was like long before Cameron Jordan came about. So, the pass rush, it's okay. I don't remember too much about it. I do remember Will Smith, the late Will Smith. May he rest in peace. He was an anchor for that D-line as well. And, of course, Jonathan Vilma leading the charge on that defense, a middle linebacker who had a good career with the Jets, but found his footing in New Orleans. And that was an all-around solid-ass team. They won the first 13 games, 13-0 before losing the last 3, including a home loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They finished the year 13-3, the best record in the NFC, and had home field advantage throughout the NFC playoffs. They dominated the Kurt Warner-led Arizona Cardinals by a wide margin, and which would be Kurt Warner's final NFL game of his career, and then he retired afterwards. And then they hosted for the first time ever the NFC Championship game at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. It was what was known to be an epic showdown between two great Hall of Famers, a future Hall of Famer and already a Hall of Famer. Brees against the ageless wonder Brett Favre for the Minnesota Vikings. It was the Saints hosting the Minnesota Vikings, led by the Hall of Famer Brett Favre, to see who would punch a ticket to the Super Bowl against the Peyton Manning-led Indianapolis Colts, who also had a great record that year at 14-2. And Manning was league MVP for that season, but that's something I'm going to get into later. Brees and Favre, matchup of the century. New Orleans in their second NFC title game appearance, hosting it for the first time ever, trying to get to their first ever Super Bowl. Minnesota trying to get back there for the first time since 1976. It was a back and forth affair. Both offenses clicked. And it was in that final minute of the fourth quarter is when Brett Favre tried to make Brett Favre-like magical plays happen, made a boneheaded move, and threw an easy interception to Tracy Porter, which allowed him to return some yards, forced the game into overtime, and then allowed Brees to capitalize on the ensuing opening drive overtime, march down the field, and have Garrett Hartley, their place kicker, nail the game-winning field goal of his life and help New Orleans win the game in overtime and punch their ticket to their first ever Super Bowl. They have never been there. It's the first time ever they have a chance to play in the big dance. And with Brees and Peyton at the helm, a lot can happen. Now, New Orleans, in their first ever Super Bowl appearance, were playing against that year's league MVP, Peyton Manning, Hall of Famer Peyton Manning, and the Indianapolis Colts, led by Reggie Wayne and company. I forgot. Peyton Manning, Reggie Wayne, and there was a couple of other people. I try to remember, so I apologize if I couldn't remember that. But yeah, Peyton Manning and Reggie Wayne leading the charge. And it was a really interesting battle at first. The Colts jump out to a 17-6 lead at the half before the second half began. And then on the second half kickoff, to begin the second half, Sean Payton made arguably one of the most gutsiest calls in Super Bowl history and possibly in the history of the NFL, where he decided to make an onside kick to begin the half, and New Orleans miraculously recovered. That was a gamble that he knew that he was going to make. If he hadn't called that, it would have been a whole different story. But since he made that, it just basically set the tone for the rest of the game. And Brees was on fire at that game. And the Saints just launched a full-on scale attack and never looked back, and scoring the ensuing touchdowns to increase the lead that they would never relinquish. The lead was now 24-17 in favor of New Orleans. Peyton Manning was driving late in the fourth quarter, and then he throws a game-costly ceiling interception return for a touchdown to Tracy Porter that would eventually clinch the win and seal New Orleans' first ever Super Bowl title. And from there, the legacy of Drew Brees would forever solidify on that very game. And of course, he was the Super Bowl MVP after a great game that he had. And he just basically gave New Orleans fans something to forever remember in the edge of their hearts. He and Sean Payton both single-handedly revitalized the Saints franchise and became one of the most recognizable and sought-after franchises in the history of the NFL. And credit to him, man. That was the most deserving and unbelievable win that we can ever think about. 3 years prior, they made arguably one of the greatest turnarounds in NFL history, and they cap it off 3 years later with a Super Bowl title. I mean, you're talking about a city that was devastated by a hurricane, lives were lost, injured, and homeless. And then for this franchise to turn it around a year later and then cap it off with a Super Bowl win 3 years after tells you how much the legacy of Drew Brees and Sean Payton will forever be etched in the minds and hearts of Saints fans all over. And from there, his legacy just forever eclipsed the modern NFL quarterback, as we all know. In 2010, made the playoffs, got bounced by Seattle in the wild card, but the 2011 season is when he literally hit his mark. He set the NFL record for the most touchdown passes. No. I take that a lot back. He set the NFL record for the most passing yards in a single season, breaking the single season record held by Peyton Manning at that point. And then from there, he just further etched on to his stats. And then by the end of his career, he set the NFL record, and more importantly, he is the all-time leader in both passing completions and passing yards. And then up to his retirement, he and his rival Tom Brady were battling out for whoever would finish with the most touchdown passes in NFL history. And that record is currently held by Brady. So Brees finishes second all-time in that category, but he remains as the all-time leader in passing yards and passing completions. Something that Brady might catch up to in his next couple seasons if he's still playing, but that proves to you how much of a hellified quarterback that Drew Brees is. And one of the greatest players in NFL history that could never, ever be replaced. And of course, the last 4 seasons for Brees before his retirement have been etched out in heartbreak. His last 4 seasons have all ended in playoff heartbreak. Let's see, the 2017 season. No, the 26. No, what was it? Yes, the 2017 season. They won the NFC South Division, man, as a wildcard team, and was 11 seconds away from punching their ticket to the NFC Championship game, their third in franchise history, against the Minnesota Vikings on the road. And then next thing you know, rookie safety Marcus Williams misses what could have been a game-ending tackle, and allowed Diggs to walk it off with a game-winning touchdown and punch Minnesota a ticket to the NFC title game. That was the first of 4 straight heartbreaks for the Saints. Then the 2018 NFC Championship game, in which they hosted against the Los Angeles Rams. We all remember how that went down. The missed pass interference call, a blatant pass interference call between Nikhil Roby-Coleman and I believe Michael Thomas. That was a blatant no call, and they missed that. And in overtime, Drew Brees throws a questionable interception and allows the Rams to drive down the field and kick a game-winning field goal to win the game in overtime and punch their ticket to the Super Bowl, in which they would lose to New England. Then last season, they hosted a wild card game in the Superdome against the Minnesota Vikings, the team that broke their hearts 2 years prior. And it was a back-and-forth affair, but still the same result. In the ensuing first drive of overtime, Kirk Cousins would lead the Vikings down the field and connect with Kyle Rudolph for a game-winning touchdown. And their playoff season ended right there. And now, last season, this past season that just ended a month ago, they were in the playoffs once again, winners of the NFC South Division, and this is the first time ever that he and Tom Brady were going against each other in the same division. Brees and the Saints have won both matchups against Brady and the Buccaneers by lopsided fashion, and Brady had both horrible games in those games. But then came the NFC Divisional Playoff game in the Superdome in New Orleans, and the Buccaneers came out rolling. Their defense was the biggest story, and they punked Drew Brees up and down, forcing him to throw 3 different interceptions. After getting off to a hot start, the Bucs would take over the rest of the way and just dominated the Saints. And from there, another playoff heartbreak, and sad to see that his career would have to end in such a sour note. You know. And from there, we all wondered and questioned if he was going to retire after that game, after he did a wave goodbye to the fans of New Orleans in particular. That's when we all got our answer to this very day. Drew Brees, after 20 great legendary seasons, would finally announce his retirement. I mean, the last game he played was just a sad sight to see, and I just wish it didn't end like that, but at the same time, it's football, any given Sunday, and anything's just unpredictable. When you look back at the legacy of Drew Brees, you can think back not his time in San Diego, because that was a mixed bag, But his time in New Orleans and everything that he did for that franchise and what he done throughout his career to solidify himself as one of the greatest quarterbacks and the greatest players in NFL history. In his early 40s, he has retired as the all-time leader in pass completions and the all-time leader in passing yards. But he's second all-time in passing touchdowns behind Tom Brady. But this guy has revolutionized the game of football that we have never, ever seen before. To new heights, rather. And this guy is a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer. No doubt about it. Of course, the guy announced his retirement by going on an Instagram post, sitting down on the couch with his family, reflecting on his decision. And hell, it was reported that after football, he was going to be on the broadcasting team for NBC Sports. And that's a great a great way to cap retirement after football. So he's done on the playing field, but he's not done with football completely. And for me, Drew Brees is in like, if you want to put together like top 10, top 5 greatest quarterbacks of all time, you can't tell the story of football without talking about Drew Brees. If you want to put together top 5, top 10 list of quarterbacks of all time, Drew Brees definitely has to be in there. He has to be in there. Hell, I'll put him in my top 3 if I could. You know? But yeah, that's just something I want to get out. Drew Brees, thank you so much for giving us so many memories, so many great performances, so many achievements, and you deserve every single one of them. And love, recognition, and respect from all football fans and peers alike. We love you, and we will never forget you, man. Thank you so much. And that's all I have for today's video. If you liked the video, hit the like button. If you want to see more of my content, hit that subscribe button. Want to see when I'm gonna upload my next video, hit that bell com button, and you'll find out when I'm gonna post up my next video right on the spot. And let me know what you think in the comment section. What is your favorite memory from Drew Brees, and how much did this guy mean to you? In a sense, as a football fan, like I said, you can't tell the story of football without talking about Drew Brees. And that's just what it is. Anyways, that's all for today, man. I'm Nick Johnson, your favorite sports YouTube journalist, and I'm out. Peace.